Nigerians woke up to breaking news on Tuesday following a further increase in the pump price of premium motor spirit, petrol, which caused a lot of anger and condemnation poured from across the country, with citizens describing the decision as insensitive. Welcome to Standpoint. I am Precious Amayu. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his inaugural address on May the 29th, announced an end to the fuel subsidy regime. Even though the subsidy regime covered the month of June, oil marketers swiftly adjusted their meters to 500 naira and above per litre of petrol. However, less than 2 months after that increment, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited announced another increment, blaming it on market forces. It is coming at a time the citizens are still battling the effects of the May the 29th increment, which saw the pump price of petrol jack up from above 197 naira per litre to over 400 naira. Now, many Nigerians had, in the aftermath of the May the 29th increment, parked their vehicles and resorted to commercial vehicles, which they considered economical. Some others sold their cars, and that's the current reality of things. Prices of transportation, foodstuffs, other goods and essential services have also witnessed an astronomical increase. However, there is no uniform price of the commodity across the country. In some places, it's above 500, some above 600. Some states might sell as much as 700, depends on what part of the country or neck of the woods you're in. And that's the conversation we're having today. If you live in Lagos or some parts of the country, the roads are clear. People are not driving their cars. Now, joining me on the program is former chairman, Senate Committee on Upstream Petroleum Resources, Senator Basi Albert. He joins us in our Abuja studio. We're also joined from Abuja as well, Comrade Adams Abonu. He's a civil rights activist. And here in our Lagos studio, we have Sunday Akere. He's a former commissioner of information. He's a former commissioner, I just want to get that right, a former commissioner of information and strategy, rather, Osun State. Good to have you join us, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. Nice to be here.
Thank you. I want to start with you because you're here with me in the studio. This is not what Nigerians bargain for. Most of them, agree that that food subsidy should be removed. But the consequences today, if you live in Lagos, you know how the traffic is. But in the last 1 week, it's been free road. People say they're hungry. People have to choose between transportation and food. So should I pay 600 for transportation that I used to pay 200 for, or save that money so I can eat? I mean, what's your thought on that when you look at, compared to the resolve or the resolution by NEC in the last meeting?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, we should all agree that removal of subsidy has been long overdue. The past regime, instead of taking the boldness and the confidence to do it, they were dancing around it. And that is why all of us should commend the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for having the boldness to take the decision on the 29th of May. What we are facing now is the reality of the moment. There can be no gain without pain. Yes, the removal was done on the 29th of May. We all realized that what the government is trying to achieve now is to ensure that people will have access. If you have the money, you can import fuel. At least we read it in the news over this week that at least one company imported about 27 million liters of fuel now. We should realize that it is just like the mobile phones that we were using. I can still remember that the first SIM card that I bought when mobile system was introduced in Nigeria, I bought the single SIM card for 28,000. Today, they are begging you to come and take it for less than 100 naira or so. Our people should be patient. There can be no gain without pay. Definitely, it's difficult now. But I know that in no distant time, maybe in the next 6 months, 1 year, we should start at least getting the benefits. But for now, what we expect is that the government should look at ways in which they will ameliorate the sufferings of the people, so that at least we cannot say, because we have removed subsidy, we are making more money. And we should ensure that the money that we are making is channeled through meeting the needs of the people at home, and at least ensuring that people are comfortable. And that calls to question the responsibility of the 3 tiers of government. Everybody is pointing at the federal government now. Nobody is talking to the states and the local government that are getting huge allocation from the federal now. we should, well, as much as we are talking to the federal government to ensure that people have access to welfare issues, the state governments too and local governments should be called to question to ensure that the money that they are getting, they are putting it to the benefit of the commoners.
And that's who I'm going to. Let me bring in Senator Bassi into the conversation. Senator Bassi, the commissioner here has stated that, look, Nigerians have to bear that there is no pain, or there's no gain without pain. And Nigerians will say, look, for a really long time, they're not sure they have had gain at all. If you look at the complaints they've made about the previous administration, I want to ask you, when you look at the measures that the government is trying to put in place through the resolution that we heard from NEC in their last meeting and the current realities, what's your opinion?
Well, I think thanks for actually having me here. And like the last speaker actually started, but let me just take us back memory lane. This issue has been at the front burner of our national planning and national discourse in the last couple of years. I can recall that as a member of the last Senate, and the President Muhammadu Buhari actually stated that fuel subsidy will go effective July 2023, which actually gave credence to the fact that budgetary provisions was only made to accommodate this subsidy till June 30th. So I believe that, like the last speaker rightly said, I must give it to Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has demonstrated what I see and I call as the 3 C's of leadership. Which is leadership based on conviction, leadership based on commitment, and then leadership based on the capacity. And for me, courage is the answer here. And I believe that he has taken the right step because the issue of first subsidy removal was not his own. He's only following through from the last time administration. Yes, my heart goes to all Nigerians, and like the last speaker actually stated, that if there is no pain, there is no gain. This has been the kind of nemesis and strangulating the average Nigerians. And then the issue of subsidy removal, I believe, the country will be better for it in the couple of months to come. And in terms of policy, there is a period where you have to formulate policy, there's a period where you have to implement policy, and there's a period where you have to review the policy that you are implementing and formulated to ensure and ascertain whether such policies have met its desired criteria and achieved the purpose for which it was meant to achieve. So I believe that, yes, there is a general consensus that subsidy should go, but we must take cognizance of the fact that this issue of subsidy has brought untold hardship to Nigerians. That's number one. And I'm happy because Mr. President, in his wisdom, called for National Economic Council, which means that he has called for the buy-in of other subnational government, because whatever the federal government does, if the state and local government does not have a buy-in, it amounts to nothing, because the federal government strategy can only achieve a certain percentage of impact. The main onus is for us to ensure sincerity on the part of our governors, and like the last speaker said, local government chairmen, that they must have this buy-in, because most of our people lives in the rural community. But I make bold to say that I support Mr. President in totality in his efforts towards ameliorating the sufferings of our people, and I also stand with the sentiments of our people that governments must begin to earn the trust of its people. These issues that we have today is a result of failed promises of the past government. But I must say that I think President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has set Nigeria on the right trajectory. And I believe that all that is needed right now is for us to be patient, support him, and see how far he can go. But I believe Nigeria has been set. This is one policy that has been applauded by even our international community, international financial institutions. And because it's able to say, at the current fuel price, I can tell you, at the current exchange rate and at the current price of crude, there is no way Nigerians would have still be borrowing to support fuel subsidy. So I believe that as we go on in the program, we intend to throw more lights on this issue so that Nigeria will begin to see and
So
appreciate the
let me put you on hold, Honorable Bassey, Senator Bassey, just a moment. I want to bring in Comrade Abono, but after I take this report, because I want us to now focus on some of the resolution and some of the palliative measures we had announced by NEC in the last meeting. But let's take this report, and from that report, we'll continue our conversation. I'm not sure we have that report now, but let me get to Comrade Abono. Let me get to Comrade Abono before we play that report. Comrade Abono, what's your position on the outcome of the NEC meeting?
Well, the National Economic Council meeting was quite responsive to the issues on ground. You know, the issues around the removal of fuel subsidy, though has been overdue since the presidency of Chief Olusegun Obasanjo. There has been that recurrent decimal, which has been to remove fuel subsidy and apply whatever money that accrues from that removal to the benefit of all Nigerians. You know, it's courageous of the president to, take a bull by the horn by removing a wasteful fuel subsidy regime. You know, but it should also come with a human face. Like the distinguished senator has said, Nigerians have actually been looking up to ending that regime of waste. But I am of the opinion that because people are suffering because of this removal, and we all agree there's a national consensus that subsidy should go, and it was courageous of President Tinubu to take that bold step and end a wasteful regime. But I am insisting, and majority of Nigerians are insisting that in doing this, there must be a human face to whatever exercise that the government deems fit for the people of Nigeria.
Comrade Abono, if I may just quickly jump in, what's your thought on that 8,000 naira conditional cash transfer to now be handled by the state government? It was meant to be handled by the federal government, but the state government said, look, we do not trust the social register of the federal government from the previous administration. But just that 8,000 naira, do you think that it does match the reality of things?
Well, to put it properly, the 8,000 naira is a mere pittance in our present day economic situation in Nigeria. 8,000 naira would barely buy a household 6 loaves of bread. You know, by that calculation, I think about 1,200 per loaf would only procure about 6 loaves, and then you will be left with a balance of about 800 naira. So it stands that this government should be able to gauge the pulse of the people and the particular economic situation. The demands that 8,000 naira would barely do anything. And when you talk about conditional cash transfers, from the days of Shopee, the subsidy reinvestment program of President Jonathan, there has been a glaring evidence that we do not have an effective social register. You know, so in applying these funds, we need a lot of things need to be put on ground. We should have good accounting system. We should be able to know how many people would benefit from these conditional cash transfers. And then particularly, the government should also sort out its priorities properly, because the 500 billion naira that will be the source of fund for this 8,000 naira, I mean, it's been taken from the supplementary budget, the 2022 supplementary budget. I am aware that there are contractors who are handling projects from about 800 billion naira supplementary budget. 500 billion will be taken. But the application of this 500 billion naira should be such that it does not affect other works that are already going on from the 2022 appropriation budget. And again, fundamentally, applying this 8,000 naira, which to me and to a lot of people, I'm a journalist and I am an activist. I interact with people, I gauge what they expect, and what the people of Nigeria expect at this time is that government should think beyond handouts, beyond pittances. With this 8,000 naira could be applied to, developing our refining capacity. It will go a long way cushioning the palpable suffering in the land. So to particularly answer your question, the 8,000 naira is a far cry from what should obtain at this point in our economic...
Comrade Abono, I will get to the issues of refinery and what more the government can do, but I want to come to the commissioner here. You look at the fact that government says, on one hand, we want to offer you palliatives, because you were talking about, this administration should be commended for being able to enforce the fuel subsidy and no pain, no gain without pain. But there's some pain that can also be, controlled. For example, government says we're going to give you palliatives, but as we speak now, federal unity colleges have increased their tuition from 19,000 to 100,000. We see Unilag, that's University of Lagos, announcing an increment from 19,000 to 190,000 for medical students. Courses that require laboratories and studios will pay 140,250, and others that do not require a laboratory and studio will pay 100,750 naira. I just want to get your thought. How do you think Nigerians should see this?
Well, when we are talking of this removal of subsidy and what the government needed to do, there are actions that the government needed to do. There are things that should put in place. One, we mentioned the issue of palliatives. Then we look at it. If we have a government that is spending over 7 trillion naira on subsidy per annum before, and the government told us that in the month of June alone, 1.9 trillion was saved. That is to tell you that if what is saved is committed towards ensuring the easy governance of the country, then the people will benefit from it. Look at it. Okay,
easy governance, shouldn't that also translate to easy way of life for people? Because these are government-owned, just to make a commission, these are government-owned institutions. Government can say, hold off on, increasing school fees, just to ameliorate, because those who attend these schools are not the rich. So just to ameliorate the pain for people. But how do you think that people should react to this if government is saying we are looking after your welfare, but there is increase in school fees?
What we are saying is this: if the government wants, when you look at even this increase in school fees, you discover that it wasn't even done in the regime of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The circular announcing the increment was issued on the 25th of May. That was to tell us that decisions have been made and concluded before it comes on board. But what we are saying now is that the government should look at it before we are able to have full implementation of the palliatives. The government should maybe hold on to all this increment that is, okay, at least we discovered that when the 8,000 naira thing was announced, the president said they should go and review it and see how it can be able to be made to work very well. When you look at the list of people that are going to be beneficiary, majority of the states, they don't even have the updated list. I remember that when we were in government in 2014, the list of those people that benefit from such was done in Osun. And I don't know whether even between that 2014 and now it's been updated. What the government should do is that in the alternative, if you know that at least, okay, we have removed the subsidy and there is no going back about it because all the parties that 18 parties that contested the presidential election in February said they will remove subsidy if they come on board. What the government should do is to put a hold until we start seeing the benefits of the profit that we are making from this removal in the system. Part of it is, okay, let's look at the workers' salary. Let's make an increment. In the period that they are working on the new salary scale, let government look at it. Can we give tax palliative to the workers? If you are paying probably 30,000 as tax before, let's reduce it to half. And the 15,000, we make some little difference. And all these increments in in the school, in tuition fees of tertiary institution, university schools, the government should at least maybe for a few months hold on to it until the people start seeing the benefits of subsidy removal.
Let me get to the senator. Senator Bassi, on one hand, there is 8,000 palliative to now be handled by states. Some states are saying, look, we're going to do this based on how we feel or what we feel our people need. So some people might not even get 8,000 naira. And then there is going to be, incentives in the agricultural sector, and some other measures that that were mentioned yesterday. A look at the increase in minimum wage, but on the other hand, we're seeing increase in school fees. I just want to get your thought on that as well, if that is not contradictory to government palliative measures.
I'm only worried about this issue of implementing the palliatives through the instrumentality of the state governments, because there is every likelihood that the implementation will be politicized. Because I just pray that the state governors will not limit the beneficiaries of this palliative to members of their respective political parties. That's just my worry. Because I have come to see President Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a leader of Nigeria, who believes that this is a time for governance, who believes that he's here to serve the interests of all Nigerians, irrespective of political sentiments and affiliations. So there must be a checks and balance mechanism that will ensure that these Nigerians, irrespective of political sentiments and lineages, have access to this palliative, most especially those in the rural communities, because I know what 8,000 can do to a rural dweller in Nigerian context. Most of our people, of course, that they live in rural communities and they do not see the third mainland bridges of Lagos, the dualized roads in Abuja. They're not interested. They believe in restricting themselves, their lives, to the issues of their rural markets and rural environments. So we must ensure that members of National Assembly are carried along. They must be part of whatever implementation committees at the respective states to ensure that, because this were the people, the voters who voted for them as members of the National Assembly. So they must be carried along. Secondly, the issue of palliative is not a permanent solution. Government must begin to look at those areas, because what drives this, as long as the price of crude keeps increasing, and then as long as we do not have a clearly defined strategy for checkmating the skyrocketing of our exchange rate, these, I believe, are two parameters that will always determine the issues of price. So we must make sure that we improve on our local refining capacity, because when you refine locally, there are certain aspects of your OPEX, which is your cost of operations, that are localized, which are in naira, which are not that do not have any foreign exchange related expenses. So these are ways, because as long as exchange rates keep increasing and the price of goods keep increasing, and we are importing 100% what we consume locally as regards petroleum products, this issue of consistent and persistent price increase will continue. So I believe that we must begin to look at the structure, the foundational structure. What drives foreign exchange? How can we free our foreign exchange? Because even those who want to import, like now that the market has been fully liberalized, even those who want to import must have access to foreign exchange.
But Senator Bassi, let me just quickly comment because of time. You mentioned the involvement of the state government. So what extent do you think?
Yeah. Can I follow me through? So what I'm trying to say is that palliative is one, but it's not the final solution. We must begin to address those structural, what we need to do structurally to address this solution, because an increase in fuel price would lead, whether you increase minimum wage today or tomorrow, whether you give taxed palliative today or tomorrow, we must know that a persistent increase in fuel price will continue to reduce the purchasing powers of an average Nigerian. So whether you pay a civil servant 100,000 minimum wage, and then inflation is at a different dimension, you will reduce its purchasing power. So I believe that we must begin to look at those structures as a government that we feel will help teleguide Nigerians. One of these structures is to make sure that we put our refineries at production level, and that Dangote refinery comes upstream. Once we're able to meet this local refining capacity, then I can tell you we can then begin to see a reduction in fuel price, because fuel price determines every other price in the market.
All right. I'm sorry, I have to put you on hold so I can bring in Comrade Abono. Comrade Abono, you've listened to Senator Bassi, you've listened to the commissioner here. First of all, what is the realistic increments for you think it will be for workers? Because even right now, we can say that not every state is even implementing the 30,000 naira minimum wage. Most states complain, or some states complain, that they cannot afford that 30,000 naira minimum wage. But the organized labor is saying there has to be an increment to match what the current realities. So what is the right increment that would match the current realities?
Well, considering that, inflation is on a high tide in Nigeria, you cannot peg the minimum wage of Nigerian workers to a certain amount, because even if you're paying 200,000 naira minimum wage, it is, at the barest minimum to meet any needs of a family, of a working class family. Because as far as, the distinguished senator just said, petroleum prices are the core of about every other thing in this country. So if the tendency is that petroleum prices are going to be on the rise, then inflation will definitely be the order of the day. So even if you peg the minimum wage for 200, 300,000 naira, it wouldn't provide the barest minimum for anybody. And then to talk about minimum wage further, not all Nigerians enjoy minimum wage. Not all Nigerians are workers. So when you increase minimum wage and the woman at the market increases her price, some person else bears the brunt of these things. The person who is not qualified, who does not access that minimum wage, how would he or she pay? So why the organized labor is agitating for a rise in minimum wage, government should also be responsible enough to know that there are other Nigerians, in fact, majority, who are not beneficiaries of this minimum wage, who fend for themselves by daily, tokenism, and these people should be taken into cognizance. I'm sure that is where the issue of the 8,000 naira palliative comes in. But then the message is this: 8,000 naira is quite gross. As the distinguished senator just mentioned, I would actually want to correct him that at the rural areas, 8,000 naira is not able to buy anything these days, because what obtains in the township also obtains in the rural areas, because the near lack of basic amenities in the rural areas tend to even shoot up the cost of living in these rural areas. So if you're paying 8,000 naira pittance to be able to balance an increase in minimum wage, it is quite disproportionate, and then I think it is irresponsible and irresponsive of any government to neglect the welfare of majority of the people, to, putting priority on a section of the populace that are qualified to take minimum wage. So if, in my opinion, and I think I represent majority of Nigerians on this issue, the government should put enabling environments. I blame the past government of President Buhari, because before you remove minimum wage, there should be, there should be an environment, an atmosphere where the hardship that would accompany such removal will be cushioned. I expected that before the subsidy removal, our refineries should be working optimally. The Dangote refineries that we all heard about should be performing optimally. Should be refining to meet local demands, So in a situation where the cost of living is on the increase, however you peg the minimum wage, it is going to be of very little benefit to anybody. In fact, it will tend to even rise the trends of inflation further. Thank you.
All right, let me come to the commissioner. What for you is the way forward? Because we can say all we want to say at this moment. What matters is that Nigerians have at least a semblance of a comfortable life. Nigerians, people will say Nigerians don't worry too much as long as they can feed themselves. Even if it's 2 square meals and they can pay their transport fare, they don't bother you as long as life is at least comfortable for them. So what do you think beyond these palliatives? What should government, because it doesn't go around everybody. Not everyone is vulnerable, in that sense. What should government be doing to ensure that at least, for the above 200 million people in Nigeria, that there is a semblance of a comfortable life?
Well, thank you very much. Just like what the last speaker said, the comrade, some of the blame should go to the people that have been in government for years before Asiwaju came on board. Because if you have the intention that, okay, one day we are going to remove this subsidy, the government should have been thinking ahead that, okay, when subsidy is removed, what are the things that we'll do? Nigeria today, we have 4 refineries. None is working. What we have been reading or hearing from the beginning of this year was that the Dangote refinery will start in June. That they said July. The Dangote refinery too is set to start in July now. We are hearing that even Dangote himself is part of people asking for license to import fuel. You now start asking yourself the question. The government should ensure that this PMS, that's the primary problem from this subsidy removal, should be made available to the people. The government should invest in what we call modular refineries, the small refineries that can take maybe 5-6 months to put in place. The maximum that such a refinery can produce is 30,000 liters per day. Let us encourage people to invest in this thing when there is fuel everywhere. Just like I said for the mobile phones, definitely the prices will come down. If we increase minimum wage, just like Comrade said, to 200,000, and the cost of fuel keep increasing every day, inflation will continue to rise per day, and nobody will even feel the benefit of the increment in the minimum wage. The government should ensure that, one, those that are not civil servants too have benefits. The people, the farmers that are in the various communities, they should ensure that we give them agricultural inputs. Give them agricultural input. Is it fertilizer? Is it seedling? Encourage the farmers to produce more. And in doing this, we must ensure that there is security. All of us know that in the years past now, what has been militating against agricultural produce from the northern side of the country is the insecurity that the farmers too have been facing there. Ensure that there is security of lives and properties. Ensure that for the farmers, we give them inputs, seedlings, fertilizers, and all those things that they will need to make their businesses function. For those that are not working, 8,000, I know to some people, is big money. At least I can know that some people will say, oh, we want to alleviate poverty, we can even be giving you 5,000 per month. To some people, it is big. I want to tell you that somebody called me this morning and started questioning, just like they said, that if you ask the state government to handle it, they might politicize it. The person was asking me that, Honorable Commissioner, sir, now that they said they are going to give the palliative to the state government, won't they politicize it? We knew what happened during the President Jonathan era when Shopi was giving to PDP. And
even during the COVID-19 era.
So we should ensure that even if the federal government is going to use the state government to distribute the palliative or whatever they want to do, they may ensure that at least there are people to monitor each of the state governments and even the local governments to ensure that this thing get down to the real beneficiaries. And also, there should be means of transportation. In most advanced countries now, you don't see everybody that in Nigeria can say, oh, I have 8-10 vehicles in my house. I can fuel all of them. Now, I want to tell you, when sometimes ago, I was to travel to Abuja, and I discovered, okay, let me just buy fuel. We bought fuel about 60,000. When I came back, I said, I want to buy this fuel. It has written to 175,000. And you start asking yourself the question, how long will you continue to be doing this? The government should ensure that there is the refineries are functioning. If the 4 refineries are functioning, if we have small modular refineries, if Dangote refineries are functioning.
So, apologies, let me just put you on hold because I want to take that refinery conversation to the senator. I want to ask you, Senator, the Petroleum Industry Act. Are we seeing the actual? Because I think it's the GMD of the NNPCL who was talking about market forces now at play in the oil industry. Are we seeing the actual implementation of that act? Is this what it was crafted for?
Yes, let me say here that by the special grace of God, I played a very pivotal role in the passage of that act, so I can speak to every content of the Petroleum Industry Act, and I believe that that act has actually repositioned the country's petroleum industry, given confidence to investors, and then by creating in an independent regulatory oversight for both the upstream and the downstream, as well as an independent Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC Limited. And then owing to the activities of the Mele Kyari-led NNPC, I believe that the issues of a refinery did not even start today. It must have been a prolonged abandonment of turnaround maintenance. It's just like the human body, that when you just go unattended, definitely you're bound to have crisis. So I believe that yes, that act has actually repositioned NNPC as a transparent. They should be transparent, and they should be accountable to Nigerians who are the shareholders in that company. And we must begin to hold leadership accountable. And at least the GMD had actually stated here clearly, now that the market forces have come into play in the determination of price of petroleum products, then the onus is on the Port Harcourt refinery and the Warri refinery to come upstream. And I believe that he has assured us that by the third quarter of this year, that Port Harcourt refinery should come on stream. If that comes on stream, I think that will be almost about 200,000 barrels refinery will come on stream. If Dangote comes up, because I even understand that Dangote has been given license to equally start importing petroleum products. So if that comes up too, I think that will go a long way. But like I stated earlier, we must begin, for us to drive down the exchange rate. We don't produce or print dollars in Nigeria, so we must have what to sell that will bring in money. And if all that we have to sell to bring in the dollars foreign exchange is our crude oil and other contributory agricultural products, a focus should be made on that. But the issue with crude oil is that crude oil, we earn most of our foreign exchange through the sales of crude oil. But we also expend most of our foreign exchange also through the importation of petroleum products. So I believe that once we're able to attain local refining capacity, there will be a lot of savings. There will be a lot of savings and less pressure on our dollar savings. And then you will then begin to see the price of dollar coming down. And once that price of dollar comes down, price of petroleum product will begin to come down, and we will begin to have a meaningful life across every sector, every facet of our life. So I believe that Nigeria, like I said earlier, we have gotten it right now, because gone are the days where we were borrowing to pay subsidy to fund consumption. Now we can begin to borrow to create activities that will create jobs. And once you create jobs, you create the propensity to serve. And once you create the propensity to serve, you increase the purchasing power of Nigerians. And once that is increased, you then the marginal, I think, capital formation then begins to accumulate for the benefit of all Nigerians. There is no going to say we cannot cut corners. We cannot cut corners. We must accept the fact that collectively as Nigerians, we must have this consensus. Let us bear this pain once and for all, to create a future for our children.
Mm. And in terms of cutting corners, I wish we could get your thought, but my time is up. I wish we could get your thought on, the fact that in these trying times, as it were, the National Assembly is getting 70 billion naira allocation, and Nigerians find that insensitive. But, I have to give the last word to the comrade in just a minute before we move to other conversation. Comrade, in just 1 minute, I want to get your last word on the current reality of things. How do you think that these issues should be addressed beyond just, the refinery?
Well, beyond these issues should be addressed with every sense of responsibility, and also knowing that the times are peculiar I cite a particular instance. The government is taking 500 billion naira from the supplementary budget that was meant, to ameliorate flooding, that contractors have already moved to site. You are going to be removing this money to pay palliatives that are not going to be sustainable. You are invariably putting some other people out of work. These contractors that are supposed to be benefiting, working with the supplementary budget, are going to have nothing to work with. So the issue of removing money to give 8,000 naira palliatives to people, I think it's unsustainable. The government should, bring everywhere without together.
All right.
Develop our refining capacity, provide an environment where people could go about their businesses, and then we will be able to get caution when
Comrade, I'm afraid I have to leave it there. My apologies for interrupting you. But that's where we leave this particular conversation. Thank you so much for talking to us. The former chairman, Senate Committee on Upstream Petroleum Resources, Senator Basi Albert, who joined us from our Abuja studio. We also had Comrade Adams Abono, civil rights activist, joining us via Zoom from Abuja, as well as the former Commissioner of Information and Strategy, Osun State, Sunday Akere, who joined us in our Lagos studio. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nigerians.